I'd like to introduce our next guest, who is Marianne Waldrop. And Marianne is a Marine. So Marianne, can you tell me about this fabulous career you had with the Marine Corps?
I spent 24 years in the Marine Corps. I really enjoyed being an intelligence officer. I spent time in Japan and Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and Camp Pendleton, and I retired most recently August of 2011 from Miramar, California.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. I had a great time. My dad was my inspiration.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your dad, because I know earlier today you spoke at our Women Veterans Conference here in San Diego, and you told us a story about your dad. So go ahead and tell us that.
Well, my dad is a retired Marine colonel, and he retired in 1975 when I was 10 years old. And I knew when I was at Parris Island, which was his last duty station, Parris Island, South Carolina, that I was going to be a Marine, and I told him that. And I just recently got a letter that Dad had written that I never received, and said, I never believed my daughter would be a Marine. She told me when she was 10 she wanted to be a Marine, and sure enough, she got a Naval ROTC scholarship, and I went to the University of North Carolina. And in 1987, my dad commissioned me. My mom pinned me on.
Oh, now that's that's great. Because I just met you at the Women Veterans Conference, and the Women Veterans Conference is about leadership, which is why I asked if you would be willing to be a guest on our TV series. How about the changes that you've seen in your career? I'm in a doctoral program for leadership, and I just recently wrote a paper about the last 25 years and the transitions women have made. And the literature says about civilian women, woe is us, we're not making it. Well, the military women have made it, especially in the Marine Corps. I came in 1987, and we couldn't go on ships, and we couldn't fly in airplanes. It actually had a detrimental effect on my career relative to my peers. Because you couldn't...
I couldn't go aboard ship and take a detachment.
Right, and you couldn't increase in rank because you didn't have the combat-related experience.
I could increase in rank in the junior ranks, but it was going to affect me.
When you became a
Right.
field grade officer.
Yes,
correct.
Women now talk about being on ships and being on the Marine Expeditionary Units out in the Mediterranean and in the Pacific. That is an experience that I never had. Then in 1994, approximately, when I was at Naval Postgraduate School, women Marines could fly. They were going to flight school. And I had friends in 1987 that were in ROTC, one from Boston College, that said, I'd love to be a Marine, but you guys can't fly. I'm going Navy. So for Marine, I've actually seen tremendous transition. And only a few years before I came in 1987, women would have to get out of the Marine Corps if they had babies.
The transformation for women has been remarkable, because it's really one of the few places where women and men are truly equal.
And that's why I think it's important for the literature of leadership to understand that it is possible. And I think that the Marine Corps shows that in the last 25 years, progress has been made. But I tell you, the civilian literature seems to say that there's been no progress made for women in leadership. Now, is it really leadership or is it power? Because I think women are leaders in every aspect of life, but it depends on how you measure it. And I think the military really walks its talk. And I'm proud to be a military member.
We're here at a Women Veterans Conference, and the purpose of the conference is to empower women. And it is a benefit that you've earned with blood, sweat, and tears. So don't just sit there and not know about it. Take advantage of it.
I think it's a cultural shift, because as we talked about today, there's a whole generation prior to my coming in 1987, which was Desert Storm and beyond, felt that disability benefits were for those seen wounds. We can rectify the physical wounds, but we're unable to address the unseen wounds unless that veteran feels empowered enough.
How do we empower women veterans, or veterans in general, just to learn about, educate yourself, get yourself registered into the system?
And I tell you, I think from my personal perspective just recently getting out, I think that it's not my experience as a colonel that I have this awareness. I think everyone is getting touched now with the information that they need. Whether they do anything with it or not is their story.
That's true. Let me ask you a question, because you did make a career in the military. If you had a daughter and she said to you, Mom, I'd like to go into the military, what would you tell her?
I would encourage her. I firmly believe that there is a kickstart that comes with being a woman in the military. And I would have to say that I can only speak from being an officer. So I'd be interested to see what the literature says. I think the experience is pretty vivid. The difference between an officer's life and an enlisted life.
Well, now that's a whole different
I know.
conversation. Yes,
it
ma'am.
is. It is. That's why we need more women in the officer ranks, because we need some advocacy so that we empower our young women and encourage them to stay on instead of off-ramp at the earliest possible moment.
You would still encourage your daughter to go in, even with all the issues that are going on in the military?
Absolutely.
And do you think those issues can be resolved, and how?
I speak about this often in my personal communications with people. And my personal insight on this is that we are a cross-section of society. I don't think anybody would really argue that. And I would say that because we are a government organization, being in the military, Department of Defense, we have to report certain statistics. Now, I would like to see universities and colleges report the same statistics, because I argue that with the demographic of people that join the military, particularly the males and the women, the demographic of women in the Marine Corps, the predominant age demographic is men 18 to 26. You take a look at what their behaviors are in their off time, and then you capitalize on that by being a warfighter, and there is a dynamic there that probably escalates the military to a higher rate, especially the Marine Corps, of sexual assault. But let's not ignore that this is happening in civilian life too.
Yes,
but they are not reporting it. So why would I tell my daughter not to go in the military when I know it's happening outside of the military too? It's not reportable, not usually tracked, but still is prevalent. The risk is either way.
Yes, yes.
And I'd rather her have the advantage of having the support system in the military than being hanging out there in a college environment, which is where I saw the most sexual assault. But I don't think that the military is the evil here. I think we are putting, it's a train wreck watching it happen.
And there's
That
many
age group.
reasons
Right.
for it.
Right.
It's movies, it's TV, it's everything that we do in our society.
Exploiting.
Yes, exploiting women as sexual objects.
Yes.
And okay, you think of a woman first. Most men look at women and they think sex is just
Gender
ingrained.
stereotyping.
Exactly right. The military does, when they do it the right way, is everybody's part of a member of a team,
Right.
and you look at each other as, okay, she's got my back, I got her back, because that's the only way you survive. That's the whole idea. You can't think of the other member of your team as a sex object. So once they can get past that and look at, okay, this person is trained in the military, they're this MOS, we're as good as the men. We may not physically have the strength, but we're as good as the men. And this is something, from the time that I was in to what I see now, I'm most proud of, is all the strides that women in the military make. 15% of the total armed forces is women, and they would like to get more. But they're not going to until they can get past the military sexual trauma. I really want to thank you for your service, Marianne, and I want to thank you for being a guest on our show, because really we're trying to outreach to women veterans, become empowered.
Yes.
Any closing comments?
Well, I'm honored to have served, and I hope to perpetuate bigger and better careers for our women in the future.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Very good.